President Lee Jae-myung took his economic diplomacy to the New York Stock Exchange, urging global financiers to invest in South Korea. We have a wrap-up of his United Nations debut. The ruling Democratic Party has reached the required supermajority to end an opposition filibuster, immediately pushing through a contentious government restructuring bill, including reshaping the prosecution agency. In a historic broadcast from the courtroom, former President Yoon Suk-yeol has pleaded not guilty to all charges related to his December martial law declaration. We take you to the courtroom. Good evening. Welcome to Newscenter. I'm Kim Do-yeon. We begin with President Lee Jae-myung's visit to the New York Stock Exchange, where he sought to attract more global investment before heading back to Seoul. Our presidential office correspondent Song Yoo-jin starts us off.
This is South Korean President Lee Jae-myung ringing the iconic opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange on Thursday. At the world's largest stock exchange by trading volume and the oldest on Wall Street, President Lee hosted the Korea Investment Summit, where he urged heavyweight financiers and business leaders to invest more in South Korea. The key topic was the so-called Korea discount, a term describing how South Korean companies are often undervalued compared to their global peers. President Lee cited geopolitical tensions on the Korean peninsula as a major cause.
남북 대치, 군사적 대치 때문에 오는 불안정성, 이로 인한 저평가, 휴전 중인 나라인데 또 군사 밀도도 높고 혹시 무슨 일 생기지 않을까?
Highlighting North Korea's advances in missile technology, Lee emphasized his three-stage roadmap of nuclear suspension, reduction, and eventual denuclearization. He once again described U.S. President Donald Trump as the only one capable of brokering such a deal, a peacemaker, while pledging that South Korea will act as a pacemaker, supporting the process. The president also outlined measures to make South Korea's investment environment more transparent and trustworthy, including stricter action against stock manipulation and unfair trading practices, and further amendments to the Commercial Act to better protect minority and individual investors. Regarding foreign investors, Lee pledged to resolve issues that many of them see as barriers to entry.
핵심은 역시 이제 요게 환거래 시장 문제라고 제가 들었습니다. 그 문제도 저희가 아주 빠른 시간 내에 저희가 또 해소할 생각입니다. 지금 외국환 거래 시장도 지금 시간 제한이 꽤 있는데 그 시간 제한을 거의 없애는 방향으로.
Currently, South Korea's foreign exchange market operates from 9 a.m. to 2 a.m. the following day, and the Korean won lacks a full offshore trading market. While Lee is the fourth South Korean president to host such an investment event in New York, he was the first to hold it at the New York Stock Exchange. So, with this, President Lee has wrapped up his trip to New York, which focused on diplomacy and economic outreach. He will return home on South Korea's presidential jet on Friday. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News, New York.
Now, President Lee Jae-myung has wrapped up his trip to New York, having made his debut at the UN. Our correspondent Yoon Jung-min, who's traveling with the president, has a recap of the trip and takes a look at what it means for Korea's diplomacy.
The highlight of President Lee Jae-myung's week-long U.S. trip was his first speech at the 80th United Nations General Assembly.
저는 오늘 세계 시민의 등불이 될 새로운 대한민국이 국제사회에 완전히 복귀했음을 당당하게 선언합니다.
He was referring to Korea's recovery from the martial law incident last December as he introduced a new initiative to end confrontation on the Korean peninsula.
교류, 관계 정상화, 비핵화, 즉 END를 중심으로 한 포괄적인 대화로 한반도에서의 적대와 대결의 시대를 종식하고 평화 공존과 공동 성장의 새 시대를 열어가야 합니다.
Another key takeaway was South Korea leading an open debate at the UN Security Council for the responsible use of AI at a time of growing uncertainty. No other South Korean leader has presided over the debate as chair.
대한민국은 글로벌 책임 강국으로서 AI가 인류의 지속 가능한 미래를 만드는 훌륭한 도구가 될 수 있도록 국제사회와의 협력을 주도하는 길에 앞장설 것입니다.
E's UN debut means a lot for Korea's summit diplomacy, says his national security advisor, Ri Sung-nak.
President Yi's trip to the United Nations shows summit diplomacy is now on a stable trajectory, something which has unfolded very quickly since the G7 summit right after he took office in June.
Economic diplomacy was also at the center, with Yi having met BlackRock CEO Larry Fink, American financiers, and leaders from European countries, including the Czech Republic, for economic cooperation. The president also met U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent amid the allies' stalled trade talks to lower Trump's sweeping tariffs.
This was President Yi's debut on the UN stage, a major platform for multilateral diplomacy and dialogue. As he concludes his U.S. trip, more summit diplomacy awaits the South Korean leader at home next month with APEC member economies. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News, New York.
The National Assembly is once again in gridlock, with one filibuster scheduled after another as the main opposition stalls contentious legislation from passing through Parliament. Standing by live is our Moon Hye-ryun to tell us more. Hye-ryun, what's happening in the plenary session right now?
Well, Toyan, it's been over 24 hours since the filibuster that was launched by the main opposition People Power Party began in an attempt to stall the passing of the DP-backed government restructuring bill. That filibuster has now come to an end after a motion submitted by the ruling Democratic Party passed with the required supermajority, 3/5 of sitting lawmakers. Following the end of the filibuster, the DP immediately moved to pass the bill to amend the Government Organization Act. Of the 180 votes cast, 174 lawmakers voted for, 1 voted against, and 5 abstained from voting. This contentious bill has been at the center of partisan conflict as it would overhaul several key agencies, including the Prosecution Service, the Ministry of Economy and Finance, the Ministry of Environment, and the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy. The bill originally targeted the Financial Services Commission too, but an emergency meeting between the ruling Democratic Party, government and presidential officials yesterday saw those plans being dropped. They said financial governance should not become a political flashpoint, warning that uncertainty could hinder efforts to tackle economic crises.
Right, so what's next on the agenda for this lengthy plenary session?
Well, the DP proposed 4 contentious bills for this plenary session, and the PPP has vowed to filibuster each of them. So the plenary session is currently under its second filibuster. So now that we're back down by 1, we're on to the next, which is an amendment to the Act of the Establishment and Operation of the Korea Communications Commission. That legislation would scrap the KCC and replace it with a new Broadcasting, Media and Telecommunications Commission. The new body would assume the KCC's current responsibilities and also take on additional media promotion functions, including the oversight of paid broadcasting. As the new filibuster will take another 24 hours before lawmakers can vote to end the debate, the DP will only be able to pass this bill tomorrow evening. With 1 bill passing through per day, this plenary session is expected to continue for a few days yet. And that's all I have for now, so back to you, Toyan.
Right, thank you so much for that, Hye-ryun. Now, today, former President Yoon Suk-yeol, charged with an attempted insurrection and unlawful imposition of martial law, appeared before the public for the first time since being arrested in July. This first hearing for a case brought up by the special probe team against his insurrection allegations was broadcast for the public to watch closely. Our Moon Ji-young reports.
피고인 성명이 어떻게 되시죠? Even a former head of state, Yoon Sung-yeol, was subject to the same legal formalities as any other defendant in the courtroom. Dressed in a dark navy suit and appearing visibly thinner, Yoon entered the courtroom wearing his inmate number 3617 on his chest. He denied all charges during an initial hearing of a trial brought by special prosecutors investigating his attempted insurrection and imposition of martial law. This marks the first instance that lower court trial proceedings were partially broadcast with the media allowed to film the moment Yoon entered the court.
Considering the public's right to know, the necessity of a fair trial, and the principle of presumption of innocence for the defendant, the court allowed video recording and photography exclusively to pre-approved personnel for this specific case, and only prior to the commencement of the public trial.
The rest of the hearing was recorded by a third party chosen by the court, was later distributed to other media outlets, but only for this first hearing. Yoon is already standing trial on charges of leading an insurrection through his failed attempt to impose martial law in December. However, the special counsel team specifically outlined 5 additional charges against him. These include violating the rights of cabinet members, revising the martial law proclamation, and obstructing his detention by investigators in January. Furthermore, he is charged with ordering the deletion of call records and the distribution of false statements. During the hearing, Yoon's lawyers disputed each charge, arguing the former president had declared martial law in an emergency and promptly lifted it following the National Assembly's vote for repeal. Yoon defended himself against allegations concerning a false proclamation that investigators believe was drafted after the decree was lifted to prove the legitimacy of his actions but later discarded. Meanwhile, the special counsel team requested that court conduct intensive hearings for a swift verdict. In response, the court stated its plan to hold hearings at least once a week, aiming to conclude the trial within 6 months. 문지영, 아리랑 뉴스.
President Lee Jae-myung will host Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba for a 2-day summit from September 30th, not in Seoul, but in Busan. Announced just hours ago, the top office said the leaders are set to hold talks at an official dinner in the southern port city. The visit follows the resumption of so-called shuttle diplomacy in August, where President Lee first suggested meeting somewhere else than Seoul. This will be the first time in 21 years that a Japanese Prime Minister has visited a Korean city outside Seoul for a bilateral summit since the 2004 meeting on Jeju Island. The agenda is expected to focus on future-oriented cooperation, strengthening trilateral security ties with the U.S., and discussing other shared regional and global interests. The South Korean stock market lost ground on this Friday in response to remarks by U.S. President Donald Trump, who claimed South Korea's $350 billion investment will be an advanced payment. Our Park Jun-won covers his latest comments, the ripple effects, and broader implications.
U.S. President Donald Trump intensified pressure on South Korea on Thursday local time, insisting that the $350 billion investment package Seoul pledged in ongoing trade talks must be paid up front as a precondition for tariff relief. This remark, delivered during a White House signing ceremony for a TikTok deal, highlights the deepening differences of opinion in negotiations and escalates trade tensions between South Korea and the U.S. Following this announcement, South Korea's benchmark Kospi saw a significant drop of 2.4% on Friday compared to Thursday's market close.
There's growing uncertainty over investment talks between South Korea and the U.S., especially after Trump raised the issue of an upfront payment. That pushed the $1 rate to $14.10 and weakened investor sentiment. If talks collapse, higher tariffs and volatile exchange rates could further pressure local markets.
According to a Wall Street Journal report on Thursday, U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick has suggested Seoul increase the investment package beyond $350 billion, closer to Japan's $550 billion, with the U.S. looking for more of the funding to be provided in cash rather than loans. Lutnick stressed that although South Korea may not match Japan's $550 billion commitment, Seoul should accept similar terms. However, an economics professor claims that providing $350 billion in cash at present is impossible without a currency swap. And he said that immediately providing cash could harm the mutual interests of both South Korea and the United States.
People think South Korea has plenty of cash, but most of its $400 billion reserves are in U.S. treasuries, not cash. To raise dollars, South Korea needs to sell those bonds, which could shake the U.S. Treasury market. Japan would face the same situation, so it's unclear if that's good for the U.S.
Although specific terms for the investment package have not yet been agreed upon, negotiations are expected to remain difficult and could go on for an extended period. 박준환, 아리랑 뉴스.
On the cultural front, beyond government talks, it's culture that connects people. Seoul is showing how cultural exchange can tie nations closer together. Our Park Hyo-bin has more.
Dancing, music, and shared laughter. What may look like a festival is in fact a stage for diplomacy. Unlike traditional diplomacy that centers on government negotiations, public diplomacy brings citizens themselves to the forefront of culture exchanges. And this week, Seoul has become the very meeting ground as it hosts the 7th Public Diplomacy Week under the theme Connecting the World Together. More than 30 foreign embassies and cultural centers in South Korea are taking part.
The event is more than just seeing different cultures. It allows visitors to take part, which enables a real culture exchange to happen.
At Poland's booth, a lace-making session is in full swing. Visitors carefully weave lace out of thread finer than a strand of hair. Each stitch reveals the intricacy of Polish craft, drawing curious eyes and hands into the process.
I've always liked knitting, so when I heard this was traditional crocheting from a country I didn't know well, I was curious to try. It's more fun than I expected.
Meanwhile, at the Columbia booth, vibrant music fills the air as dancers perform the traditional rhythm, kumbancha. Moments later, a workshop transforms dance into dialogue as visitors learn steps and instruments directly from the performers.
Well, culture and arts can strengthen the diplomacy between the two countries. And today we brought music, but there are several other expressions, particularly in Colombia. So what we are trying to do is have a comprehensive portfolio of cultural expressions and basically literally cross the world to show it to Korea.
By using culture and art as a medium, the event demonstrates the power of public diplomacy that transcends borders. Organizers say it proves that diplomacy is not confined to meeting rooms, but can also flourish in everyday cultural exchanges.
Public diplomacy is about two-way exchange between our citizens and foreigners in South Korea, deepening mutual understanding and allowing people to share South Korea with the world while learning from other cultures.
Public Diplomacy Week, which runs until this Saturday, proves that in today's world, culture has the power to act as diplomacy itself. Park Hyo-bin, 아리랑 뉴스.
There are many reasons to wait for Fridays, and one of them is definitely the arts and culture coverage by our culture correspondent Park Gun-woo. He's in the studio here with us. Happy Friday, Gun-woo.
Great to be here, Doyeon.
Now, you just got back from Jeju, and I see you brought something. Tell us what you saw.
So something's glowing right now, Doyeon.
Exactly.
So do you have any clue what this is?
I'm guessing it's a drone. I see the propellers.
Okay, yeah, correct. So it's actually a drone ball used in drone soccer. And I brought this all the way from Jeju because the city is now hosting the Dronesoccer World Cup for the very first time, which kicked off on Thursday. And the place is buzzing with thousands of participants and visitors from more than 30 countries. Yesterday's opening ceremony truly felt like a big festival as I got to see many spectacular drone performances, including fireworks and light shows. During my visit, it felt like stepping into the future because who knows, in a few years, drone sports might even become part of the Olympics. But before I tell you more, come with me and I'll take you to the high-tech sports arena. After the referee blows the whistle, 5 players on each team start to fly for their fierce battle. Unlike regular soccer matches, it's not athletes running on grass. It's these spear-shaped flying machines buzzing through the air. This drone soccer ball looks just like any other sports ball, but once you switch it on, it's now ready to take off and fly into the ring that's set way above the ground. Controlled by each pilot, The drones each have their own roles. Those in attacking position aim to shoot, and those in defense block the rings. During the game, collisions are fierce, with drones crashing to the ground. But just like human players shaking off an injury, they quickly rise again and rejoin the game. Matches that are tied even go to penalty shootouts, where one drone has just 5 seconds to score as many as it can, while another drone blocks the ring. This intense competition is happening at the world's first Dronesoccer World Cup in Jeju for 4 days through the weekend. Around 1,600 participants from 33 countries across 6 continents are taking part.
Drone is getting so popular in all over the world, and then I looked into the whole game. It's a new sport, and it's really innovation, and it's so exciting.
Korean techniques are the highest level of all the world, so we came here to learn about how they play in teams, and also what material they use, because it's important how the drone is assembled.
As the birthplace of drone soccer, Korea has been dominating many of the matches, and some pilots share what's required to be a great player.
Piloting skills are the fundamentals, so I practice 4 to 5 hours a day. But as a team, communication is just as important, so we constantly shout instructions, who's attacking, who's defending during the game.
Both club members and national teams continue to compete, with the country versus country tournament narrowing down from the round of 16 all the way to the final. The top 3 teams will be able to win tens of thousands of dollars in prize money. As the World Cup shows how far drone technologies has flown, drone soccer may be the next game to really soar as it takes flight from Korea to the world.
Right, so I just learned 2 things. That's a ball.
Okay.
And that drone soccer was made in Korea.
Yes.
How did this happen?
Yes, so that was very interesting. The idea came from a researcher in an institute located in Jeju dealing with advanced technology. And as China accounts for about 70 to 80% of the drone manufacturing industry, an official from the Federation of International Drone Soccer Association says Korea needed a new strategy for differentiation.
Aside from military use, most of the commercial drones are used for leisure, cameras, or agricultural purposes, which are dominated by China. We couldn't compete in that market, so we decided to focus on leisure drones and created Dronesoccer, the first of its kind in the world. We believe this could be flagship Korean content for the future.
He added that the sport became popular especially during the pandemic because it's non-contact. Currently, there are 24 countries as official members of the FIDA. And to tell you more about drone soccer itself, there are 2 official categories, Class 40 and Class 20, divided according to the size of the ball. And the 20 centimeters in diameter, which I brought into the studio, and the other 140 is of course a bigger one played on a bigger court. There are other demonstration sports at the World Cup, such as cracing, a portmanteau of crash plus racing, which is a race while avoiding many obstacles within a limited time.
Right, now we get that it's very popular globally, but let's talk about the drone industry with itself as we were talking about. How is it going so far in Korea?
Yes, so first of all, the Transport Ministry has announced a 5-year project which is worth 75 billion won, or over $53 million, to develop drones including delivery and agricultural models starting this year. And aside from that, the K-Drone to World Festival is taking place until next month. The Dronesoccer World Cup, which I visited, is also part of this festival. Those interested in drone shows and special events like drone racing, please check the official website that you're seeing on the screen right now, as there are many more events set to be held in cities across Korea, including Namwon City down the road. And there are around 40 nationwide drone soccer competitions held each year, not counting many smaller local events. And as there are around 2,000 drone clubs, many more, as there are in Korea, operating across the country. Personally, I hope that I can participate in a drone soccer competition after practicing in a club, and I'm even aiming to become a referee, so wish me luck.
Well, I know you're talented in many things, so I'll be looking forward to your performance. Well, thank you again and have a great weekend.
Thank you, Doon, and I'm going to fly back home with my mini drones.
Oh,
have a nice weekend.
Okay, thank you.
Today, late heat continued in the middle of the day, with daytime temperatures rising to 28 degrees Celsius in Seoul, exceeding the average temperature by about 3 degrees. It will continue to rise, getting up to nearly 30 degrees during the day tomorrow. A huge gap between morning and daytime temperatures will continue for the time being. It will rain in the Jeolla-do provinces and Jeju Island until tomorrow. About 10 to 60 millimeters of rain is expected on Jeju Island and from 5 to 50 millimeters in the Jeolla-do provinces. Tomorrow morning will start cool at below 20 degrees in most parts of the country. Daily highs will move back to 27 to 28 degrees with some clouds in the skies nationwide. On Sunday, rain will cover the whole country. Please bring an umbrella when you go outside. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is Newscenter for tonight. I'm Kim Do-yeon in Seoul. For all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and have a great weekend.